I'll pursue that a bit. Maybe I should ask you the first one is, why did you decide to go down that route?
In terms of the change?
Well, hang on a minute. You've got a 10% savings target from 14-15. Is that not covering the probation service? Okay, so you're not having to find 10% in 14-15?
No.
Okay, but from 50, once the new service is set up, the way you're going to fund the 50,000 extra offenders is by finding savings elsewhere. So you're going to fund the extra offenders from elsewhere in the Ministry of Justice budget?
Sorry.
Offenders in particular.
We'll come back to the PBR. We'll come back. I'm sure people want to come back to. I just want to pursue the point which you haven't quite answered. I mean, the first thing is I understand. You create one national bureaucracy instead of 35. That there may well be a saving there. But you do accept that the 21 organisations will have to have their own administrative structures.
The 21 organisations will have to have their own administrative structures,
and that will go into the cost somewhere. Even however efficient they are, they'll have to have administrative structures.
That's fewer than the 35 that exist at present.
And we should also
that's fewer than the 35.
Yeah, but there will be and what you haven't answered, and then I'm going to go to Nick and then Gita. What you haven't answered.
We have an aversion to TLAs, which are three-letter acronyms. So if you could speak English, we'd all appreciate it.
Fair enough. For interpreters.
I accept that. You still haven't answered any of you. 3 people have had a go at it now. Just answer me the question, and which requires you then to come in at a later stage if 1 in 4 cases shift from being low risk to high risk, which requires you to have a system that monitors and then takes a decision to move. However lean you make it, it's a new process which will have a new bureaucracy. Am I right? Am I right?
No.
So are you saying it's... Are you telling this committee when we come back to test you in a year's time, there will not be any additional costs arising out of these new processes?
No, I'd like to point...
No, just answer the question.
Well,
are you telling to...
I'd like to say...
So are you giving this committee, Mr. Spurr, the assurance that these new processes will not add additional administrative costs to the running of the system? Yes or no to that? But will there be additional cost or not out of these new processes?
I can't say that until we've gone through and seen what...
Because
you are saying there are savings with respect. That's not what you were saying with greatest respect, Ursula. What you were actually saying, cost. All I'm saying is the other side of that equation. Will there be additional costs because of people, A, being allocated in the first instance, and B, being moved? How many do you expect to be moved? How many people go up and down that risk register? How many? If I was wrong about my 1 in 4, what is it?
I don't have a figure because we don't retain a figure.
Well, how do you know the 1 in 4 is wrong, Mr. Spurr?
Because changing risk.
No, I know, but you're designing a different system. So you're designing a different... The whole point is you're designing a different system.
My aim would be managing
How many do you reckon? What's your idea of this?
And I haven't got a...
What does that mean? I don't understand that. When you're trying to predict processes, how many does that mean?
I don't think it's fair for me to pluck a figure out of my head at this minute, and I can't do that.
Programme.
Just give us some idea what you're talking about.
Well, so if you look at...
But the Peterborough model, as I understand, is you volunteer, don't you, to go on that program?
That's correct.
And the model that you're designing is not a voluntary model?
Yes, that's right.
But it's a big difference to say you've got one where it's voluntary to one where it's compulsory, isn't it? Yeah. Or somebody who was involved in... Were they involved in either the interpreter's contract or were they involved in the tagging contract?
No.
Can you say yes or no to that, please?
Open book is a very... I think if we had our contract management...
Are you looking for open book arrangements?
Sorry.
It's a very simple question.
Okay, yes.
Yes. Thank you. So the prime contractor will not be able to slice off if they do no activity in a particular location. How much have you spent so far on consultants?
The only reason I think why we're hesitating about this is because in this program...
Yeah, how much have you spent so far?
First of all,
how much have you spent so far?
Specifying, but
how much have you spent so far, Dame Ursula? How much have you spent so far? Across the piece, how much have you spent so far?
In the last numbers that I signed off, we'd spent £9 million.
£9 million so far.
Yes.
And that's a moving figure because we're catching you in flight.
Political answer. I'm going to ask you said you've learned from the past, the Serco and London Probation Trust contract, which I understand has been... What have you learned from that? Because that's been the Serco and London Probation Trust contract, which was the £37 million contract that the Department awarded in 2012.
Difficulties, teething issues in getting.
So you're saying the information I've been given is not right?
Some individual cases.
I mean, more worrying. I heard that they didn't update the records of 1,362 people. What have you learned in terms of setting and running a contract?
That you need.
Now, the report also talks about an aggressive timetable, Dame Ursula. How long is the period for getting the contracts in, from invitation to tender? How long has that been?
Between now and...
how long is it? What have you given yourselves?
Well,
between
the invitation tender...
Yeah, how long...
And we've said that we'll sign the contracts by the end of the year.
By October?
By the end of the year.
Has that slipped from October to the end of the year now? It just seems to me that the report talks about an aggressive timetable. My concerns are you're very tight. Whether you can do all the necessary due diligence that we would expect of you to ensure that we get a contract which delivers both the quality and the value that you want of it in that tightened timetable. Everybody okay? Call it a day. And we look forward to seeing you again before Christmas.